Life, Liberty, and Levin. #1 show here Sunday nights, 8 p.m., Fox News Channel. I call him the Great One. You know, Mark, we watched this Barack Obama give the eulogy, the service for John Lewis today. John Lewis, brave man his whole life. He literally made changes to the Civil Rights Act come into being, Voting Rights Act. And I'm listening to Obama today, and he's talking about, in John's memory, John Lewis's memory, extending the Voting Rights Act. And I'm thinking, the guy at the top of the ticket for the Democrats this year, along with Pelosi, along with Schumer, along with the Clintons, they praise the former Klansmen who filibustered these bills. Now you tell me, and this happens every Sean, 2 and 4 years, Mark.
You know, Sean, that speech by Obama reminded me of the good old days of Obama when he was a community activist hanging out with domestic terrorists. He's probably really getting into the, Molotov cocktails and all the rest, the good old days for Obama. You know, Obama has milked this country for everything it's worth. He's milked it for maximum power. He and his wife are now worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, having sold their presidency after they've left office. He gives these speeches now and then. He's abused the black community more than any modern president that I'm aware of, or any modern politician for that matter. What exactly has this man done for the black community since he's been in the private sector? What did he do for the black community when he was president, other than kill school choice in Washington, D.C.? I can tell you what Lincoln did for African Americans. I can tell you what Grant did. I can tell you what Eisenhower did. I can tell you what LBJ did. I can tell you what Donald J. Trump did. But I can't tell you what Obama did. Now, I want to educate Obama, the former law school professor, and all the leftist kooks out there. This country, systemically racist, let me tell you something. No country puts hundreds of thousands of men on the battlefield and lose them in a civil war to keep a union and end slavery. The equivalent of 4 million men lost their lives to end slavery. That's a little bit more than Barack Obama has done or LeBron James. Let's go over it quickly. Civil Rights Act of 1866. Does that sound like a country that's systemically racist? I don't have time to get into what every one of these acts did, but people can look them up. Civil Rights Act of 1871. Civil Rights Act of 1875. Civil Rights Act of 1957. Civil Rights Act of 1960. Liberals, follow along. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Civil Rights Act of 1965. Civil Rights Act of 1968. Civil Rights Act of 1990, Civil Rights Act of 1991. We have Supreme Court decisions. 1948, Shelley versus Kramer. 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. 1962, Bailey versus Peterson. This is what I would have said at John Lewis's funeral. 1967, Loving versus Virginia. 1968, Jones versus Meyer. 1971, Griggs versus Duke Power. 1986, Paxson versus Kentucky. Now, here's what I didn't hear at the funeral when Obama was giving a Democrat left-wing kook speech. Not a word about America's greatness. Not a word about how men in our military, black, white, brown, red, yellow, went off to defeat Hitler and Tojo and Italy, fascist Italy, put their lives on the line. 400,000 of them died. Not a word about the men that fought in Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq in our diverse, integrated military. Not a damn word. Not a word about the thousands of those who are murdered in our cities every year. 7,500 black people, mostly 90% by other black people, including in his city of Chicago. Didn't bring it up once. Not a word about the nuclear family and personal responsibility and opportunity. Not a single uplifting word for the country that made him rich and made him president and made him powerful. Rather than saying, look at what I've done with my life. Look at what I've become. Look at all the people trying to pour over our border, legally and illegally, of all races. From the third world, south of the border, from the continent of Africa, from the Far East, from the Middle East, from all over the world. Why are they trying to come here? Because of George Wallace and Bull Connor? This guy, if they want to run against George Wallace and Bull Connor. Well, I would say this to President Trump. You've got a quasi-Bull Connor and a quasi-George Wallace. His name is Joe Biden. And Joe Biden bragged about working with James Eastland and Stennis, two white segregationists and racists from Mississippi. He bragged about working with other segregationists. Joe Biden has said nasty, bigoted things throughout his life, despite the Praetorian Guard left-wing media that protects him in his bubble in his basement and all the rest of it. The fact of the matter is, I know this. Donald Trump and the private sector hired thousands of black Americans. Tell me, today, the very wealthy Obamas, how many black Americans have they hired? How many black Americans have they helped? How many black Americans did Biden hire? None, few. This president hired thousands during the half-century career in the private sector. And as president of the United States, what did he get? 7-8% of the vote of the black community. And yet, what has he done in the black community? 1,000 times more than Obama ever dreamed of doing. So Obama gives a good Castro-like speech. But when the rubber hits the road, he's nowhere to be found. That's it.
For the